This is not gonna be a traditional live. I'm recording this live, but it's gonna be a video. It's like a structured video. So I hope y'all are giving thanks or whatever for the things you do have. And today I just want to talk about the state of society as far as the it's gonna be like a lot of like I guess I'll just like start talking and then sort of because this is spur of the moment. That's why I wanted to do it live because this is my stream of conscious right now, and I like to speak on what I'm thinking because I feel like I have very profound thoughts, and I'll get so far in a train of thought, and I'll be like, "Damn!" That's why the little Chat GPT thing. At first, I was like, "Why are they charging people for this?" I can't possibly see myself wanting to pay for Chat GPT, but once I started like asking Chat GPT to present things in like diagram fashion, like when you have something that you want to conceptualize in a like a like a like a legible form, like in some sort of like typing form, you can just talk it, right? But if you want to display whatever you're talking about in like a pie chart or like a 3 to XYZ plane graph, like all right, so basically I was wanted to make a video on the sort of state of disclosure that the world is in, and it feels as though that we're because right now we're on the third interstellar like incoming object. Like this is the third object that has come from out of our galaxy that we have recorded. And the first one was like 2017, the second one was like I think it was like 3 years ago, and then this one is like now or something like that. So right now, we've got this thing called 3i Atlas, and apparently it's an object that's come from out of our solar system, and it's right now it's on the opposite side of Mars, so we're not able to see it. And it just so happened that NASA got shut down. But all this stuff is tying into the main topic of this video, which is recently I've been researching the quote unquote like quantum state. So when you're observing any sort of like whether it be a biological object or a non thing, you can perceive it at varying like sizes. You can look at it on a macro scale. You can look at it as like me as a whole person, or you can look at me on an organ scale, like me, just my skin or just like my heart, or you can look at my heart on a smaller scale and look at like the vessels in my heart. But as you start to shrink down your perspective, then all of these quote unquote theories. That's why everything. Once I got to physics in college, I was so turned off by mathematics because trigonometry and geometry felt so the theories didn't feel like theories. They didn't feel as though I didn't feel like it was theoretical. I felt as though I felt that I always made hundreds in trig and geometry, but once I got to physics and my professor, 99% of his lecture would be kind of like at the end he'd be scratching his head like we don't really know why it's like that, but it is. And I'm like, nah, that the first lecture I got like that, I was like, nah, I'm turned off by this. So now it's 2025 and we're in this age of disclosure, and they're studying the quantum state at these temperatures that they have not been able to get to in past years. Like, oh, they're like, oh, absolute zero, or they're Kelvin this, whatever the fuck that, right? Whereas nowadays, we're able to get to temperatures lower than that. And we're studying things and they're seeing that, oh, well, the theory of relativity, or like if you shine a light, like if we're standing in the same spot, me and another person, and someone stands in another spot and they shine a flashlight, it don't matter how powerful that flashlight is, we gonna see the light. If it's a dim ass flashlight, when he hit the switch, we gonna see it. If it's a bright ass flashlight, when he hit the switch, we gonna see the light. Theoretically, light travels at a constant rate, no matter how powerful the speed of light is consistent. That's the whole theory of relativity that Einstein, that was his whole big thing. So now they're putting things in super cold temperatures. So I'm asking myself, if I were to shine a light in negative million, a 000 below Kelvin, whatever they thought the lowest temperature you can achieve on Earth was 50 years ago, and they were doing all these research studies with it. That's why we have these new processors that are in the quantum state, they be saying, because it's not a liquid or a solid, because it can, if you're studying, like, they need to cool down these super processors for these AI robots. And in order to get them to function, hey there, Gloria. In order to get these AI bots to function, they need to cool these devices down really, really low temperatures. And they're finding that the electrons in these processors don't function the same way that they would at normal rates that they keep them cool at. They're like, oh, snap. That's why they're coming out with these new chips that they're like, oh, this is cutting edge technology, because it's in this hyper state where it's not a liquid or a solid. It's both. Because, they're realizing that, once you get cold enough, things start acting. Once you get colder than it is in space, they're able to achieve that on Earth now. So once you get colder than it is in space, then things start. So if you can have a craft that is able to keep its temperature colder than it is in deep space, then you can basically manipulate. You're not at the mercy of Einstein's law of relativity. Like I said, if we shine a light, who's out there shining light bulbs in that super cold temperature? And what's the research on that? They only got a couple labs in the world that can get to that temp anyway for those super processors and these big, huge, to where they got to tear down whole cities to build these huge server rooms for these AI bots and build these big, huge machines to keep them cold, because they need them at the quantum state, at that very, very small perspective that they're able to study now. They are noticing that when they can cool to a certain temperature, the electrons are not moving right. They're moving through objects. So now, the reason I wanted to post this whole video is because why I thought trigonometry and geometry was so enlightening is making me feel good now, because when they're studying these electrons, let's just say you have like a copper wire or whatever the lead is, that this, or you're the dude standing with a fucking flashlight, wherever the source is that the electron is passing through, right? If there's like a 90-degree wall, right, which geometry is basically the study of fucking, Pythagorean theorem is the study of fucking right angles. So if they're looking at these chips, these quantum chips, and they have these little slits in them and these little pivots, these little 90-degree angles, they're putting these things specifically in the chip so that the electron is blocked at a certain temperature. But when it gets to just low enough, if you have let's just say when you shine a light, if me and you are standing on the opposite side of a wall, it don't matter how bright that light is, if that wall there, we ain't gonna see it on the other side. But at the quantum state, when you freeze, when you're at the quantum state, when you're looking at things at a very small perspective and you lower the temperature, they notice that the light will pass through. The light passes, the electrons slowly seep through. They don't go over the wall. They don't go around the wall. They go through the wall. So that opens up a whole big old can of worms, don't it? And it make me feel good that I'm glad I didn't like physics that much, dude, because all those lectures were super theoretical and everything was like, we don't really know why the answer is what it is. And it's just like, fuck that, dude. I literally, when I was at Mississippi State, my physics teacher, that was the worst teacher I ever had in my life. That he was a new teacher at that school. It was literally like his first semester. And bro, his test would be like a blank sheet of paper with like fucking 3 sentences on that bitch. Just straight sentences, bro. And like 2 or 3 numbers in each sentence. And them bitches would be so hard, bro. And it's just like, God, dude. And it's just like a whole 2-hour class period would be like these 3 sentences on this paper. And you would just be, and I immediately got turned off because it's, first off, there are too many variables. And like I said, the theoretical nature of physics didn't appease me. Whereas even now, when they're studying that quantum state, it don't matter what the electron does. It don't matter if it go to the other side. It don't matter if it go on top of it. That wall is still there. So the person who was really focusing on advanced geometry, advanced trigonometry, putting in those angles and figuring out those fucking walls, the dude that's studying how to put the wall up in between me and the person with the light bulb, that dude is way more, we're more assured in what he's got to say than the dude who was telling us how the fucking light moves because the light's going through the wall now. Yeah, dude, I don't feel like posting my face. I'm doing like an old school college kid style video. If you know who College Kid is, you do. If you don't know, I'm pretty sure you probably won't. He's not a well-known dude, but he was always speaking on he wasn't talking about surface level bullshit, brain rot that you want to go watch. What's up, Mr. Nikoi? But yeah, dude, that's all I wanted to post in this video, man, because I'm like very, very, very interested in seeing what they're coming up with these, if they're throwing all of this capital towards AI research. It's not necessarily the product that the AI is going to give us that's going to benefit us the most. It's the research that we gain from studying what happens to these objects when we're able to put all this compute at these bots. What do the bots do? Fuck what the bots can do for us. How are these? That's why we're able to know that electrons travel through walls now in the quantum state at super low temperatures. We didn't know that a couple years ago because ChatGPT wasn't charging people $30 to fucking ask 20 more questions. So, dude, I'm really excited about the state of the world, and I'm kind of like, I apologize for seeming as though I'm like in a bad mood or talking at you guys, but there's no excuses for that. I should always be polite to you all, and I really love you guys. So that's kind of just keep this going, and I'm gonna consciously turn down and try to express express my stream of conscious without seeming as though I'm hostile. So Right before I posted this live, well, right before I started recording this live, I was watching, I believe that dude's YouTube channel is Danny Jones or whatever. He's the younger gentleman who always has these high level people on, but he seems as though, I guess his whole stick is he's just like a Chad like bro, and he's not necessarily an intellectual, but he's able to like talk to these guys, and he sort of goes back and forth with some of them, and he hinges on a little bit on like the extraterrestrial or whatever, but I guess he tries to portray that he's like he's not unintelligent, which isn't a bad thing. Like, he's probably well read, and he probably does his thing as far as like higher level thinking. But specifically, what I have an issue with is that I'm watching his most recent pod, came out maybe 10 hours ago. And the guest he has on is I guess he's a prolific person in his field. He was working for NASA, so he's doing all this name dropping. And it seems as though the guest that he has on is this high level guest. And I'm waiting for him to say something profound, which he has. He sort of teased me in the intro. And right as he's about to say the most profound thing he said this whole pod, it's about 15 minutes in, and he's about to dive into his main life's goal. And this dude on this podcast cuts the podcast to go into a fucking commercial about fucking shroom gummies. Oh my gosh, bro. I was so upset when I seen that, dude. I was like, like, it made me so sad that you have this high level prolific person on your podcast, and he's about to say the most profound thing that he's studied in all of his years of research, and you cut to a commercial about mushroom gummies. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, because obviously this dude knew he was coming on your pod. He done picked out a blue shirt. He done combed his hair back 3-4 times, put an extra gel in it. He's making himself good to get on your podcast. And he's thinking of the most profound thing to say. And he's thinking on, how am I going to bait the audience in to sitting on the edge of their chair waiting on what I got to say next. And he thinks of this grand opening after he's done put on his big boy jeans, his nice boots. He done picked out the best belt he had in his drawer. He made his coffee. He didn't put no creamer in it. He went lean. He put some honey in it that morning. He kissed his wife. He said, baby, I'm going to nail this today. He put his blue shirt on. He knew he was going to rock it out. He got there. He's practiced this opening for days now, maybe weeks, months, who knows how long he's been telling this story. He's getting there. He gets there, pulls up, parks, walks in, confident, nails the opening, and right before he's about to delve into the main meat of what he's about to say, you cut to a commercial about weed gummies? Oh my gosh, bro. Oh man, dude. And immediately I was so upset. I'm watching this advertisement and you're telling me about weed gummies. I'm like, I'm not a drug addict. I'm specifically watching this podcast because I was about to get some higher than surface level bullshit. It's like, are you actually serious? It wasn't a YouTube commercial. It's a commercial that you sold out to, bud. You took a break from this podcast with a guy who's done research on something for probably longer than you've been alive, and you cut to a commercial about weed gummies before he's about to get into his main point. And I immediately got turned off by it. I had to come and make this live, dude. I was like, I was so far ahead in my train of thought, listening to the gentleman speak on what he had been researching for all these years. And you come in with this commercial about fucking drugs, dude. And I'm just like, what world are we living in when an intellectual podcast, the host of the podcast is cutting to commercials about fucking drugs, bro? And he's saying they're lab tested, they're the real deal, they're a good alcohol alternative. Dude, get a fucking alcohol sponsor then, you fucking dweeb, bro. I can fucking smoke a cigar and drink a fucking a cup of fucking a fucking shot of Hennessy and fucking study whatever mathematical problem that I have to study. If I take some fucking shroom gummies, dude, I'm skint, bro. I'm not able to do anything. And there's no way I'm gonna indulge in higher level thinking if I'm under the influence of fucking mushroom gummies. There's no way that you can conceptualize recreational microdosing of mushrooms to me. There's no way you can conceptualize that and compare it to alcohol. For the alcohol is the number one thing you want to keep. There's no way that you can tell me that I can microdose shrooms and be at the same level of taking a shot of like any normal, not a shot of absinthe, not a shot of some fucking something you pump out of the fucking gas tank, like a shot of like some normal Johnny Walker Blue or some Hennessy, a shot of Crown, a shot of fucking tequila, whatever, normal liquor. There's no way you can conceptualize that and say that it's comparable to microdosing fucking shrooms, dude. And then you're like, hey, Dylan, what's up? And then you're like, oh, well, it's a safe alternative. But my whole thing is, why am I wasting thoughts on drugs, bro, and comparing them to alcohol, bro? If you really wanted to make an impact by having this high-level guest on your podcast, and he's about to talk about something very profound, and you got all these folks listening, you got some folks that are listening to this that ain't never did no drugs ever, but they could potentially hear this dude talk about this shit and create something that changed the world or motivate this person to do something with their life that they wouldn't have did. But now you cut to this damn commercial of these drugs. And it's not a YouTube commercial, so we can't blame the platform. It's someone you sold out to, bruh. And now that person that was watching your pod, that would have helped millions and trillions of people by listening to that intellectual guest that you got on, who's doing an amazing job up until that point. Because this is like maybe 10, 12 minutes into the pod. The dude has not been talking a lot. He's just randomly naming, this is how obnoxious this kid is, okay? This podcast host is so obnoxious. He's sitting across the table from someone who is 100% qualified, like federal government, like has had super high level clearance. He's sitting across the table from this dude. I guarantee you this podcast host there's no way he's over 30 31, 32. He looks like he's like 26, 25. He looks like a kid that has been like, he looks like a kid that has went through like phases in life. Like he looked like he went through like an emo phase. He went through like a skater phase, like a hip hop sort of like, and then he landed on, and then once he got like old enough to where he's like, oh, I'm just a Chad fucking bro white dude. He probably went to a college and was in like a frat and just like partied hard and gets like wasted. He's got zero government training. And this is how obnoxious this kid is. He's sitting across the table from this guy. The man is presenting whatever profound thing he's experienced while he was in the armed forces. He's telling this podcast host about it. And as he's explaining it, the podcast host is so obnoxious, he interrupts him and says, oh yeah, you're talking about Project XY, like Project so-and-so, Project Bluebird or whatever. And the dude was like, Project what? He's like, the dude's like, what? He's like, oh yeah, Project Bluebird, whenever they were. And then he goes on to like describe what the dude was just talking about. And the guy was like, oh yeah, like, yeah, whatever. I guess like, like, it's like, dude, it's like how I really, one of the main issues I have with watching podcasts is because I view every media that I'm presented, if it's not in live form, like where it's just like a nigga sitting on the couch, recording the wall, talking to his phone, and it's something that you sat down and edited and had a background and all that, and you're taking a piece of media and you're sort of like fixing a plate and presenting it to me, I'm going to critically look at it. So one of the main problems I got when I watch podcasts is that I'm way too critical. So I'm watching this guy and I'm not necessarily nitpicking him, but one of the main issues I have with podcasts is that if you're at an obvious intellectual like disadvantage to the guest, one of my main pet peeves is when you don't humble yourself intellectually to that individual. It's okay if you don't know what they're talking about, bro. We all don't know what he's talking about, bro. That's why he there. I hate that shit, bro. Don't try to vibe with this dude, bro. He is not on your type of time, bro. That's why he here. He trying to put us on. All you gotta do is sit there and be like, if I'm watching your podcast and you're at an obvious intellectual disadvantage with your guests and you're not humbling yourself by saying, hey, bud, I have no idea what you're talking about, bro. That's why I love listening to you talk, because you can put us in that world that we're not in. It really annoys me whenever the podcast host has the opposite sentiment and he's sort of like trying to vibe with the dude. It's like, bro, you ain't on his time, dude. You don't know what he's talking about. And it's fine. Like I said, we all don't know what he's talking about. That's why we're watching him. That's why you got him on. So I just critically look at podcasts too much, and it's kind of hard to watch them, because that last one was just, I could not make it 20 minutes through because now I'm thinking about goddamn drugs. I don't need to be thinking about drugs. I specifically clicked on this because it ain't brain rot. It's the 3-hour pod from a dude who was in NASA, who's 60-something years old, who's on some whistleblower disclosure type stuff, dude. I'm not trying to think about drugs and, oh my gosh, bro. I'm literally I think I need to like eat some more food. I think what I need to do is just watch like some Dragon Ball or like some Naruto or something. I need to like go to sleep. I need to just fast from all I need to totally disconnect from my current situation for just like a night and just like not talk to people. Like I already talked to my mama for the day. I talked to like my family and stuff, and just not interact with anyone, because it seems as though the society that we're in now, it's too much of the social media everyone wants to be something, and ain't nobody got nothing, nobody putting nothing down, bro. It's just like, dude, whatever happened to being a loner and not being on? I don't want to deal with nobody. Everybody's gotta be in everybody, you gotta be seen. Everybody gotta be. It's like, dude, what happened to going in a corner somewhere, learning a bunch of shit and popping out and being like a changed individual? That don't happen no more. Everybody gotta be in your corner with you, watching you boost up. You always gotta flex everything you do. It's just like, bro, that shit lame, bro. Oh my goodness, it's just like, bro. Oh man. I am so thankful for this YouTube platform, and I just pray that YouTube stays here for about 9, 8, 9, 10 more years. If we can get that out of YouTube, then my sons will be able to watch this. And if God takes my life away and he don't bless me to live, and they can hear their daddy, and I can tell them, son, the world that we're living in is, things are not what I was taught when I was a kid, son. They're telling me now that the things I was taught as a child, not as though what they seen. So I just want you to see this now this is 2025, son. So by the time you see this, it'll be 2030 something. And the world gonna be different from what it is now. And just keep an open mind. Don't put yourself in a box. You're not nothing. You're not anyone. You're not yourself. You need to take the pride out of the whole equation. Look at yourself as an extension of everyone else. You're not the wettest drop of water. You're not the greenest blade of grass. And then just go about your life that way. When you're doing things for your neighbor, when you're doing things for society, do it in kindness. Do it as a offering to society, and say, this is what I'm contributing. I'm gonna be nice today to everybody, and put nothing but niceness and love in the world. Don't ever try to scheme or scam on nobody. If you ain't got it, just ask. Don't ever scheme or scam nobody, because you got enough intuition in between your ears to where if you ask enough folks, somebody will put you to work and give you a shot. And as long as you ain't been scheming and scamming nobody, you gonna run into a whole lot of folks like that, to where by the time you're 20, 30, and you've been being cool with everybody, ain't nobody gonna ever let you be hungry, ever. And you gonna always have money. So, man, just keep pushing, dude. If it's set, when you're in school and they're talking about theories, man, dude, only theory you need to know is Pythagorean theorem, bro. That's it. Don't let them trick you into, if you want to indulge in those, then go for it. But just know your daddy didn't. It's working out now, dude. Really focus on trigonometry, sine, cosine, tangent, SOHCAHTOA. It's super easy, son. It's super easy. Don't really worry about physics. Just focus on trig and geometry. All right. Love y'all. Peace out.